Hello, everybody. My name's Maddie, and I'm the Mayor of Croydon. And today I have with me Gordon Knott from CDI. Gordon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here to talk to Maddie. I'm Gordon Knott. I'm the director of Croydon Drop-In, otherwise known as CDI.
Gordon's agreed to talk to us today about the work CDI do and from the incredibly valuable and amazing work they do, particularly in Croydon. So we've agreed, as per usual, a set of questions which we're going to talk around. And I'm going to kick off with, so who are the Drop-In and why does the charity exist?
So Croydon Drop-In is it's a 43-year-old charity funded by donations and public funds, purely to serve the needs of the Croydon community to the best of our abilities. We'd say that we offer a social and relationship-based approach to tackling mental health, stigma, and discrimination. We like to intervene early, trying to prevent issues arising later in people's lives. And we believe in the strength of services that wrap around the community that are, linked in and joined up. And, we're really interested in the welfare of the whole person.
That's amazing, Gordon. I asked Gordon to be one of my early interviewees, because it is a subject quite close to my heart. And many that know me, and Gordon will know this, so I've had a history of depression. So I know the value that reaching out and making the difference in those stages can make to an outcome. I went in 2013 from being the lowest I've ever been. In fact, actually, it's the 7-year anniversary of the day my nan died, which was a large part of the cause of my depression, to being Mayor of Croydon in that time. And it's because of people like CDI and that I managed to bring myself back. So I wanted to give an opportunity for you guys to promote what you're doing in return. You'll say 40 odd years old. It's incredible. And it's something that is testament to the power of Croydon, I think, and the power of the voluntary sector in Croydon, that you guys are there and are really making that sort of difference. But do you want to go into more detail about some of the activities that you do?
Sure. Thanks, Maddie. You're right. Croydon's an incredible borough, especially the voluntary sector. And, in terms of Croydon Drop-In, we kind of work across a wide range. We work with pregnant mums all the way through to grandparents and elders. So specifically, we offer free counselling therapy to families and parent carers, primary school age children, adolescents, and young adults up to the age of 25. We have a free advice and advocacy service, work on issues like school exclusions, welfare benefits, and insecure housing. We run a mobile outreach service, and that's the Talk Bus, which you may have seen driving around Croydon. It sets up in around 60 different locations in a year. Locations like North End on Thursday nights, outside leisure centres, in school playgrounds, parks, housing estates. Basically, we can go anywhere where there's a bit of pavement big enough for us to park. Other bits of work that we do is that we work on a weekly basis supporting Shpressa, who are an amazing group for young Albanian people locally. We have a very active young people's participation group, often for young people who have accessed services and want a bit more input. So that's for 13 to 19-year-olds meeting on a weekly basis. We have a sexuality and gender identity group, and even a waiting list group to support young people who are waiting for counselling, so that kind of pre-counselling support. And this year we set up the Care for Croydon Collective, which is a monthly webinar meeting place for specifically aimed at the local workforce who come together. We pick a theme and we share good practice.
But if there's any way I can be particularly useful by ever coming along to any of those, you only ever got to ask.
Thank you.
I thought I might pick up on two particular things. Obviously, I touched briefly on my own reason for being a great champion of yours, and I noted that you mentioned maternal mental health right at the beginning, because that, for those that don't know, that was the time in which I was very unwell, was when I was pregnant with my first child. So it's really speaks to me as a subject matter, and it's quite notable, the real improvement. I've just anecdotally in kind of the services that during then, and then where CDI have really been incredibly come into their own in just recent time, unbelievably, in that particular service, the amount that's now there. And when I pick up on a casework and the people that I can send in the direction of CDI, And the other thing I want to talk to is obviously the fact that you work with all ages of young people, in primary school age included, which is very much my theme and my message for this year. And I think I'm not sure whether it's how it reflects on society that there is quite such a need for support in that's such a young age group. Have you found that's changed in recent years? Has that demand gone up, down? How's kind of how would you say your dynamic of service users has changed?
Yeah, I think as time's gone on and services have been developed, and one key factor in this is the development of neuroscience and how much more we know about the brain and its effect on how trauma is coped with or not, in the body and the brain. So there's a lot of massive bounds in science which has helped inform the therapeutic interventions, which has meant we've been looking at younger age children, of being aware of attachment difficulties, and also the impact of trauma, because we know the body keeps the score. So actually they can survive, but later in life, if those adverse childhood experiences aren't worked through or talked about, then they can come back and take somebody down. I think also the other thing is around, we've got a lot smarter working systemically. So trying not to work just in particular specialist pockets, but actually seeing the whole family or the whole group behind the family group. And I guess we will be seeing young people maybe for an hour or two a week, but actually the majority of the time they're with their families. So we need to be supporting their families and checking out that at home they're getting some input. So there's some psychoeducation or some support we can give to the family and the family groups, or the parent carers and the guardians behind the young people. Then actually they can reinforce some of the work that we're doing with the young people face to face. So it's a much more holistic, kind of systemic, from birth approach. I think we're much more broad-minded than we ever used to be.
I echo that completely. The whole truth of the matter is, historically we've from the tendency is across the board to just treat one thing rather than looking at the overall effect. And I think that is the real way that we will tackle all the problems in society, is by looking at it as a more holistic approach and providing support on a wider basis rather than just being emergency response. I think that's a very good way of looking at that side of it. We can never have any one of these interviews without touching on COVID, because it has had such a profound impact on everybody's lives, and changed everybody's approach. But if there's any particular way that you'd reflect on changes that you found, whether it's people accessing services, how you've been providing those services, any aspect that you feel that you've been touched by COVID. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody else, we're really sad about the deaths and the losses and the illness that's caused this year. Touch wood, no one within the agency has had COVID, but there have been relatives and grandparents who have succumbed. So there's sadness around the loss, and also I think we're pretty angry about what we've seen as the disproportionate effect on certain vulnerable parts of the community that have been exposed. And we're working in these areas with these communities, so we see it firsthand. Practical terms, we spent a lot of time looking at our colleagues on computer screens, and we really miss that interaction of meeting in person, and that's with the community as well. On the other hand, as you started to point out, it's helped us to think more creatively and connected us differently to the community, because we've had to change what were familiar ways of working and relating to each other. So the consequence of that is we've made a lot of new friendships and partnerships, and all our staff now have phones and laptops. So that gives us the opportunity to offer both face-to-face, online and phone support, which increases the possibility for engaging with the community, for now and the future. And in practical terms, a couple of examples. We had a young person we were working with, and they had to be moved out of borough. And actually, because we had the technology, that didn't stop us working with them. In previous times, that would have meant an end, but actually meant we could continue the support when they moved out of borough. And just another quick example, young person we were working with, pregnant, and went into hospital, was in hospital for about 2 or 3 weeks, but we were able to, because we got the phone, we could communicate, and we could still offer her counselling while she's in hospital, and then help with the transition back into her supported supported accommodation when she came out.
Which provides such a better outcome for her, better outcome for her child.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Like the question you previously asked, you know, we don't see it as a block of work. We would, you know, there are young people who came to see drop-in 10, 20, 25 years ago, and you know, we bump into them in the street. Or last, you know, well, I remember the last Pride, wasn't last year, was it one before? Young people come up and said, "Oh, I remember you. You know, we were working, you know, 5, 10 years ago, whenever it was," and that's really nice, having in the sense that, you know, because we rarely get to see that longitudinal effect of where do they end up 2, 3, 4 years later. A few of them end up in our participation group, which is great. And you know, I guess we'd say that we'll work with you as long as we can. We're not going to say no. We'll support you as a young person, young adult, and then if need be, you know, beyond that if possible. And if we can't help you, hopefully we know somebody who can.
Yes, it must be heartwarming as well, just to see the kind of had opportunity and to see a positive outcome from the work you did as well, and to know that their trust that you established is still there, that if they had needed support later on, they instinctively know who to come to because they've had that relationship in the past. It's an anecdotal one. It's off topic, but an equivalent example I always give is my eldest had quite severe speech and language delays, so he ended up having speech and language therapy. And because we've got a family history of it, from various kind of from things, my husband and I picked up on the problem really, really early, and we're able to really put in a lot of support for him. And now you wouldn't even know that he'd had a problem. It's still a pronunciation problem. He cannot pronounce R's and L's properly. But when he finally got signed off, his therapist and I said it's incredible to see a patient from the beginning, right from the beginning of the journey to the point where they're effectively cured. Such a rare opportunity, but because you've had that, and she sort of said, "Can you keep bringing him back sometimes? Can we show you how he's developing?" And so again, it's that positive outcome and knowledge that you've got that. Yeah. You've really made that significant difference in someone's life, and that they always have that trust, someone to support them.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, hopefully we never forget what a privilege it is to meet children and young people, and you know, for us to have the opportunity to talk to them, and the stuff that people share quite readily because they're looking for some kind of change or some intervention to happen. You know, people are incredibly courageous when they're, you know, looking for help, and you know, total respect for the individuals that we do come into contact with, and you know, it never stops being a privilege. And I think that is our job as a charity. That's, you know, where we should be, is you know, on that level, feeling privileged to work with the community.
Another one of your services that I wanted just to pick up on was, obviously you worked on that, you're doing a lot of work on gender identity. One of my biggest roots into my interest in politics in the first place was through helping a friend of mine that was transgender. I'm not going to, obviously inappropriate to give any more details away, but that was part of my route into politics. And we didn't know what services were there. The knowledge base was so limited at that stage. We really were just two individuals lost in the wilderness trying to navigate through this kind of like completely unknown world. Have you found that where the kind of work, there's been so much work done by yourself and several others on gender identity, and making it more accessible, the services more accessible, the talking therapy is more accessible, that people they're being able to come out more? Are you finding that it's still a fight? How would you reflect on that change? Because obviously that is very much a topic very much in the public agenda at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes back to one of the questions you asked earlier about what have been the changes, you know, in the last 5 to 10 years. Excuse me. And certainly, you know, we were always working with LGBT issues, but certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, you know, seen a fair explosion in the need for young people to talk about what's going on for them, because obviously identity is a core part of adolescence, and autonomy and the fight for autonomy, and questioning the existential questioning of who the heck am I, and you know, that's what goes on. And if sexuality comes into it, that's another issue that they need to talk through safely. In response, a couple of years ago, we ran a gender identity conference in the town hall. Thank you very much to the council for allowing us to use the hall. and really well attended. And it was almost one of the first times, I think, locally that actually something had come together that had realised the scale of the issue. And we picked up on a lot of young people and parent carers afterwards, who were really grateful just to have the space, to talk about the issue. And it's kind of gone on from there, really. And I think it's still also, there is stigma, definitely. There is definitely discrimination. The LGBT community are incredibly discriminated against. So that is part of the work still to help
We've
combat
got a
that.
long way to go before we're even approaching any sense of equality for people. But again. But as you can see, anyone who is doing us the honour of listening to this, from so many of the issues that from the drop-in work on are subject very close to my heart. So I could ask you questions that have personal relevance for almost every service you have. But the reality of being in this business, you do meet people that are going through all various different from situations and need support. But the majority of people that get involved in the line of work I do it because they've had personal experiences, whether it's as an individual or by people they care about, that's the reason why you move towards this. So I really cannot champion the work Gould and others do highly enough, because you just see it. You see the reality of the work that these people do. On that topic, though, from one of the things, the questions we discussed talking about was from challenges that you face. And obviously, we've briefly touched on how you've changed how you would offer your services. But is there any other particular challenges you would want to highlight that you've faced recently?
Sure. Yeah, I think, Maddie, the truth is it's been an exhausting year for everyone. So kind of top of the list is self-care. The challenge is to look after ourselves properly, so that we're in a healthy enough place to support others, because if we're not in that healthy place, then how are we going to be able to put ourselves out there and offer the support? So self-care is it's an ongoing challenge, so that's kind of often top of the priority list. I think also the truth is that, or another truth is that even before the pandemic, we all know that there's never going to be enough resource or capacity to meet all the needs. So let's be realistic. The challenge has always been to be creative and flexible, and resourceful enough to do what we can with our piece of a very large jigsaw. And the challenge is to fight for those resources, and that they are enough to meet the demands of a community that is, to be honest, increasingly anxious, under pressure, and coping with the effects of poverty and inequality. So that's kind of ongoing. And I think the other challenge is a more strategic one in a way, but it's to convince commissioners and funders and decision makers, local and national decision makers, to look to the longer term. I know we're short term. We're trying to fix the current pandemic, but actually, if we could have a bit more longevity, a bit more long-term vision, and if we were offered 5 to 10-year contracts, then we think the real social, economic, and environmental impact of the charities' work could be realised. You just need to let us off the leash a bit and look a bit longer term. And it's 1-year contracts. They have an impact, but it'd be great to be able to think, well, what can we do in 5 or 10 years, and really plan.
Okay, from anyone who's listening, Gordon's putting his pitch. I'd love to be able to say that, yes, and I do agree with you, but to be able to say, yep, you've got it. The mayor doesn't sue, that sort of thing. I could do is give you the opportunity to make the pitch you just did. I think if you just pick up on the challenges in detail, obviously you talked about self-care as the first one that you mentioned, and I think that speaks to a very wide, significant problem. I have quite a lot of issue with the people that spend constantly comparing the pandemic and the effects of the last few months with the war, and sort of like saying, oh, you're weak therefore because the poverty levels are lower, and they are on open balance. Poverty levels are different from what they were 70 years ago. That does not mean that there isn't, as you quite like you said, extreme poverty in society, and the food bank usage is alone is just an example of that. I mean, I've done, as mayor, a tour of Croydon's food banks just to say thank you and to see firsthand as a councillor the reality of what that is. And I think it's dangerous for society, this constant sort of like saying, oh, we're all weak. It's a that others fought and died in the past, and that they came through it, and all we've got to do is sit and watch Netflix. And I'm sorry, but that's just not true, and B, very dangerous for society. And I think it speaks to the fact that we do need to realise that it's not to stop punishing ourselves and say it's okay that to not be okay. Because this is not fair. The society at the moment, what societies and the whole world being affected by something as tragic and horrific as a global pandemic isn't fair. It's not right. It is what it is, and we have to do all the things to help ourselves get through this, whether it's wearing our masks, it's social distancing, it's contacting people through methods like this. Obviously Gordon and I are from other side of the borough from each other while we're doing this interview, which obviously ideally in a normal world I'd love to be sitting with Gordon and having a good tour of CDI while we talk to you all, but that can't happen. But it's okay not to be okay, and if you don't feel okay, say it. I think that would be quite certainly a message that I would give.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are different complexities these days with living and with young people growing up, in a world where 24/7 technology. Where's the respite? Because the young brain hasn't developed self-regulation enough to be able to think, I should turn my phone off at 11 o'clock and get some sleep. So that's an example, where we've seen a rising issues in sleep difficulty. And obviously without sleep, it's a basic. It's like not drinking enough water or nutritional food or whatever. If you don't get enough sleep, then how are you going to be able to function the next day? Too many distractions, the screen time, that is an issue, and that is something to do with our modern age as well.
And I think it's possibly exacerbated by this year as well, because basically we've got to do everything on screen.
Yeah. Well, the other challenge is that we've had with a lot of people those who are able to work from home, the boundaries are very blurred. When you used to come back from work, shut the front door, that was it. And now the workplace is in the home, and if it's on the kitchen table or in the lounge or somewhere, then it's right in the middle of so the place where you should be getting respite from work, it's not happened. So I think as that blurring of a lot of work being done at home, which there's not enough rest and respite going on.
Yeah, I think I would pick that up on that point a lot. It's been an increasing problem in society that work-life balance has been shifting anyway pre this year, because as you say, technology makes it working remotely so much more accessible. And I was finding yesterday, this is my own example, I was sitting with having dinner with my family. Oh, an email popped in. I better have a quick read of that. But that's just an email will wait till the end of dinner. But you just, something about your brain won't let you. And if you don't look at it, you're just on edge because you're worrying that it might be something you should be picking up on working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I talked about young people's problem with self-regulation. That's not to say it's exclusive to young people, because I think as adults, we're equally vulnerable to be addicted and to be drawn in, because it's very attractive. Are we missing out on something? The algorithms are so smart these days about capturing our data and plugging us in to things that we might be vaguely interested in. So as human beings, we're naturally curious, and we get drawn in as adults, not just young people.
Certainly, I would know it's definitely a problem for me. I've never been good at self-regulation. It's a definite weakness of mine. So yeah, again, speaks very much to me directly. Well, we talked about challenges though. Let's flip down its head and give an example of the strengths of the organisation. What if you had to highlight what your key strengths are? What would they be?
Well, I guess firstly, we'd say we're optimists and we love working with children, young people, and families. That's the honest truth. That's why you said earlier, this is vocational. We're not here to make $1 million. We're here because we love the work and see the outcomes it can have. Yeah, so we're very much very optimistic about what we can do, not about what we can't do. I'd say the other strength is that you know, we're relationship based. We believe in working with and doing with individuals rather than doing to them. So it's about involving the voice of the community, or involving the voice of the service user, whoever it might be, and actually working with them and developing a relationship. And that's why I said, you know, if we can work with them over a long period of time, then, you know, that kind of suits us. I think, you know, the other strength that Croydon Drop-in's got is that, you know, we are a part, as I said at the beginning, of Croydon's voluntary sector, which is it's an enormous, good, value for money resource for the borough, that keeps proving its worth. And you know, you could see this year working partnership, obviously with statutory providers too, delivering food, getting stuck in the community. You know, so there's the frontline stuff, and then there's the emotional well-being stuff, and there's all these different bits and pieces. So I think, you know, the strength is being part of a very decent. I've worked in other local authorities, and well, for me, my experience at Croydon's very unique in having that much voluntary sector resource. So I think, you know, that's a real strength too, that we're very proud to be part of.
And I think that's quite a good lead in to talk about something that has come up in several of my other interviews, and from how much of an example Croydon can be in our response to COVID. And we've got some of the, tragically, Croydon has got some of the highest levels of deprivation in the country, and that was directly seen in our hospital admissions, particularly during the first wave, and tragically increasingly so now with the second wave. But the speed and the kind of wide-ranging and organisation of the response in Croydon to that sudden increase of need was really quite breathtaking. And as I often reflect, as a councillor, one of your biggest jobs is to try and help the community organise itself, trying to get the stage where the community will speak with one voice and be a champion for good. Because in a day, times of increasingly tight budgets and change of culture, and also with a lot more transitional nature of people moving, the best thing you can do is be part of the community, because you won't always have the family ties. And you can spend your entire career, like literally years as a councillor, building up maybe your community to a kind of point where you've got a good resident association, or you've got a good friends group, but it will take years. And suddenly, when the pandemic hit, we had the mutual aid groups appear overnight. And though they were incredibly organised up and down the country, Croydon was one of the best resourced and best organised in the whole country.
Yeah.
And this outpouring of genuine goodwill and desire to do good that came during that time was, I am sure, reflected in how well organised the voluntary sector in Croydon was. So people were used to seeing that there were these organisations there, and so it wasn't such a leap. Sorry, I was going to say, now just, you kind of know it when you're a backbench councillor, but you don't feel the reality of the scale of it until you get to an opportunity like I've been honoured to have, to be mayor.
I think, and some of that response, Maddie, was also, you know, some of it was literal street by street.
Yes.
You know, people getting organised, because it had to be that small scale or that micro managed kind of scheme to make sure that everybody in the street was safe and getting fed and stuff. So it's that down to that level is incredibly intense. And you know, it's from our own point of view, you know, we had to close up face-to-face services on the 17th of March. The next day we're on the phone straight away. Young people, we can carry on, we can have a conversation over the phone. It's not going to stop us supporting you. So, and you know, I think it's something around that where there is the creativity and flexibility, but also that, you know, the desire to make it work. What alternative do we have? You know, this is our day job. So actually, you know, get stuck in, get creative, and find a way around this. I think problem solving, you know, is maybe it's an underestimated skill in the voluntary sector. Well, it's not exclusive to the voluntary sector, but actually, you know, we take a few knocks, you know, dealing with budgets and all the rest of it over the years, and maybe this is where all that experience comes in, is that you get kind of knocked down, but actually let's find another way around it.
You build yourself back up again, despite almost no matter what gets thrown at you. And I know the voluntary sector generally is amazing at achieving that, but from you guys in particular, as I said, I've just seen you go from strength to strength in the time that I've been involved in this sort of way in Croydon, from my own experiences all the way through my time as a councillor. And from again, Gordon will tell you, I had the honour of being involved going to their AGM last year when I was deputy mayor. And they were telling stories, and I'm rather concerned, Gordon, because I actually started crying. I was so moved by the story in particular that he said, and it spoke to my own personal experience and journey so much that it was. It wasn't that I was sad. I was just so moved and so emotional about the experience of it. I had Gordon and others being really genuinely concerned, saying, if you need to talk to anybody, we're here. And again, it was just that they didn't need to, but they just were there in that moment when they thought there's a chance that I might need you. And it really was, it really touched me, that kind of genuine affection and support that was just there because it was just because.
Yeah. I think we talk about it as work, but actually it's very emotive work. This is what we're engaged in. I can never get through an AGM without crying. And I did this year, and that was on Zoom. And even then, I can feel the intensity as, young people who have used the service of telling their stories or reading their poetry. It's like, this is really genuine. It's really honest. And that's what, continues to touch us and hopefully always will do. Otherwise, the day it doesn't will be the day to, call it quits.
I think that's very true. And I think that is a lesson that people in my line of work should learn as well. When it stops being about the calling, then you need to stop doing it. Whilst you're still, and that's not actually directed at anybody. I have got no reason for saying that specifically, but it's just a good bit of advice to take in this job, this line of work, is that when you stop feeling called to do it, when you stop doing it because you want to make a difference, then it probably is time to hang up your boots, as it were. And I think that's touching back on what we said about the incredible voluntary sector in Croydon. I think that's the point. It's not a job, it's a calling. I think you're called to do the sort of jobs that you guys do. And I like to think, at least in the majority of cases, that's the same for people in my line of work as well. You're called to try and do some good.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not exclusive to the voluntary sector. There's colleagues in public service and private sector. I mean, I guess that's when you connect with human beings and what their true motivation is. It's amazing. You find the majority of people are actually want to do the right thing and want to connect and want to help each other out. Just despite the stories that we hear in the media or other, I think that's the minority. I think the majority of community, really appreciates and really wants to reach out to each other.
And again, just tying bits of the conversation together, proven true by the outpouring of love and affection and support that we saw in March. When push came to shove, people stepped up. They did their bit. They looked after whether it was just going and knocking on their neighbour's door just to make sure that they'd got their food delivery, or all the way through to kind of the people that were just spending day after day after day delivering food parcels. From one of the things that I got opportunity to do yesterday was I was out delivering food parcels from the South Nord Pop-In. Quick name drop, sorry about that. But no, and I was out with my mace bearer Nick, and during lockdown he was redeployed to give out the council's food parcels. That was literally what he was doing. So, and we're going back to some of the places that he'd visited regularly in that, and it was genuine just having the conversation with him about the kind of emotional impact that had, good and bad, and just the opportunity and the pleasure, as well as everything, as well as the pain of seeing the suffering that as an individual you get from doing that genuine good work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's back to providing the basics, food, shelter, warmth, and then on top of that, comes decent emotional well-being as well. So that whole package, really, that's why we can never see individuals in boxes. It's about the whole holistic approach and what we can do for the whole welfare of them.
It's almost like people are complicated, that they're not shallow, and there's many levels people work on. It's almost like that's somehow a thing.
Yeah, that's part of the motivation too, isn't it? Is the I think, retaining a sense of curiosity and good sense of humor is essential, but certainly a sense of curiosity about the human condition and about other people. Who are you? What do you do? Why are we here together? What can we do together? How can we help each other? Those constantly, asking those kind of helpful questions.
What makes you tick? Why? What's your drive? What are your dreams? What's your story? And everyone's got one. Everyone's got dreams. Everyone's got a story. Everyone's got something that they would like to share.
Yeah, and all completely different.
Yeah, and that's the great, to my way of thinking, the greatest strength of society, the fact that we are all different. Because if we weren't all different, then there'd be people we wouldn't be able to fill all the different jobs, the different roles, the different creativity, the improvement in human condition generally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, the last pre-agreed question is, what are your hopes for the future? What's your hopes for the charity going forward?
Maybe a bit broader than the charity, I suppose. The top hope is that the COVID-19 vaccine is successful.
100%.
Gets rolled out across the population and really helps us, to get some stability back and stops the virus killing people. I guess another hope would be to, we truly believe in the strength of partnerships. So I guess the hope would be to keep having partnerships, because truth is we can't do this alone. I don't think any of us can do this alone. We have to work in partnerships. That's the only way forward. We have to cooperate, with each other. So a hope is, I guess, that we all, that we do stick together, that we work together, we work out our differences, we appreciate our differences, but actually, we find the collective way forward, because, that's that like I said, being isolated, being alone, is not a nice place to be, and I'd much rather be, working with other people. And I guess, I was going to say, the third hope, obviously, that Crystal Palace stay up in the Premier League.
Now you're speaking my language.
Because it's things like that matter locally, isn't it? Because that's a psychological thing as much as anything. If Palace are doing well, it helps. And and Palace for Life, great charity, and we've got young people who volunteer on match days, when they used to be able to, and those kind of
days.
Yeah, that's part of the local setup, isn't it? And so that's important that the borough as a whole feels like it's progressing and it's doing okay.
And as I said, you're speaking my language as a lifelong Palace fan. As is my husband, as is our children. They've been given zero choice in that fact. And I've actually done a lot of work this year with Palace for Life, so I can speak from personal experience to the incredible work that they do, and they're a fundamental part in the fabric of Croydon's society and as a borough. And I think obviously going to the vaccine, I mean, how could that not be the biggest hope for the future? I cannot express highly enough my gratitude and affection for everybody involved, whether it's just the person that knocked on the neighbour's door up to the people designing the vaccine, those that are working on the front line, everybody that has taken their time to get us to the point where we are beginning to see a glimmer of hope for an end to all this. And the biggest has got to go to the heroes behind the production of the vaccines that are now genuinely going out at an incredibly fast rate. We do, as I say, begin to see a glimmer of hope for the end of this. It's still going to be a long time, but we are, I think Churchill said about the beginning of the end. I think probably we're at the kind of end of the middle now. I wouldn't have said we're towards the end, but we're kind of definitely making significant progress. Now, anyone who's listened to these before will know I always end these conversations in the same way. I never let my guests know this is how I'm going to do it, because it's always more interesting to see how they respond. There's a podcast I'm particularly fond of, which I've sort of semi-nicked this idea from, but I called it from kind of closing arguments, final thoughts, however you want to word it. So I shut up and I put the floor over to you, Gordon, to how you want to finish it. What thoughts would you like to leave their listeners with?
Okay, thanks, Mandy. Yeah, I mean, I get, really truthfully to say, and at risk of repeating myself, but I said this at the AGM to the audience we had, is that, for me in the CEO position of a charity that's got a long track record, it's a real privilege to be in that seat. And I genuinely said, and I'll say it again now, it's the greatest privilege of my working life to be working alongside the the people that I'm working alongside now. And that, is CDI colleagues, but it's also, our friends and partners and colleagues in all the other services. So I guess, to end with, I'd just say I feel really lucky to be in this job. It's a real privilege. I hope I'm doing the best I can. We're not done yet by any means, so I'm not going anywhere. But I just want to say, yeah, I'm lucky to be here, and I promise to do the best I can for as long as I can.
Well, I don't know if anyone could ask ever anything more than that, Gordon. And for my part, I meant everything I said. I think you're incredible, and the work you do is absolutely superb. So thank you. I don't think we can top those incredible from closing remarks of Gordon's. Stay safe, everybody. As we said, the end is coming. We will be together again. But I hope from this giving you an opportunity to yet again hear about some of the services that are available to you in Croydon. If you need to talk to somebody, please reach out to people like Gordon. Thank you all, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a much happier and